Hi, welcome to Thriving Blind, Traveling Blind. My name is Kristin Smedley, and if you've been following our Facebook community of Thriving Blind, you may have seen that recently my oldest blind son, Michael, who's 16, just traveled alone from Philly to Chicago for a leadership conference that isn't a blind conference. It's all folks, regularly sighted 16-year-olds that are out for a big leadership conference. And Michael, actually, I got him to the baggage check, and then he went with the American Airlines staff from the baggage check to his gate, got on the plane, and went out to Chicago and did the reverse. He went out to with them to baggage and then met up with the conference folks. And I'm happy to report that he is having the greatest time out there. But I'm creating this video. It was going to be just a small little video to say how did we get to a point where we could do that Michael would have that confidence and ability to be able to go from one major city to another without me there right next to him. And it has now turned into, I was going through the list of stuff that led up to a moment like this, and it was a lot. It was a lot that I hadn't thought about in a few years. So what we're going to do here is a series of a few of the different major pieces. This is by no means an all-encompassing everything you need to think about, but this is some of the highlights of things that I find to be important in a journey of raising a blind child to the point where they are so confident and so capable that they can have great success chasing their dreams and finding their greatness. And for Michael, that's traveling independently halfway across this country to a leadership convention. Might not be everybody's dream, but it's his dream and his greatness. So today I'm going to talk about a few things that we did from way back at preschool. And I want to stop and make sure that everybody understands that my starting point for this video is preschool. There is a whole 3 years in getting to the point where we were able to confidently send our Michael into preschool, and that is a conversation, a video, a blog, a keynote for a whole nother day about the birth to 3 years in our experience with Michael. I was not one of those moms that got the diagnosis at 5 months, jumped off the couch and into action. I wasn't. I'm a mom of action now and have been for quite some time, but to be perfectly honest, in the birth to 3, I wasn't. I was in coping and realigning our dreams and our hopes and our reality with what our new picture was. So I'm going to be sharing some resources on the Thriving Blind community page on here on Facebook, so that folks that are in the birth to 3 window and might be struggling with how to move forward and cope and understand a reality of blindness for their child, I'm going to be sharing some resources for that. There are wonderful resources out there. So I just wanted to speak to that I am actually talking about once you have gone through early intervention and can start at the preschool level. So that's where this video is going to begin. So we're starting at the preschool level. That's right. That's way back when we started to take the first steps of confidence and independence for Michael. And to be perfectly honest, I was one of those moms that when we first had the diagnosis, I remember seeing the elementary school in our neighborhood. I was driving by, and this was before we were looking at preschool, and Michael was just a baby in the car seat behind me, and I remember seeing all the kids lined up outside the school in the middle of the morning. And then I realized, because I'm a former teacher and was a kid that went through school, fire drill, that's what they're doing. I was at the stop sign and noticed that they were lined up for a fire drill, and I burst into tears. And I thought to myself, how is my son ever going to be able to handle a fire drill at a huge elementary school when he can't see a thing? How is this going to happen? You see, I didn't know any blind people and had no experiences with blind people and had no idea what they were incredibly capable of, like a fire drill. So let me start with, that was my concept, right? That was my background. And when we went through early intervention, we got some great tools and skills and realized that there was a preschool in our town that Michael was perfectly suited for and was going to work well for us. And it's one of those schools, like many, where you have to drive up and drop the child off with the staff, and they walk in with the staff member. And we had visited the school, so Michael got to meet everybody he was going to be in contact with, and he toured the hallways and had a mobility instructor that showed him the classroom, and he knew everything in it. And on the first day, Mom could not handle dropping him off with a staff member. I parked in the parking lot, you know, and did the walk of shame, walking my child into the school, not giving him to the staff. I wasn't ready. But the second day, they said to me, okay, you had your first day. He has to be able to do this on his own like every other kid at the preschool. And so the second day, the whole ride there, we talked about it. And we were excited, and Michael was excited to go to school again. And he got out of the car in the line, you know, and we pulled up to the curb. He got out of the car, and the staff member came over and said, hi, Michael. And he laid down on the ground, completely stiff. And this was January 30th in Chicago, and he was, you know, packed into his ski jacket. It was freezing cold. He was completely stiff. He was screaming. I was sobbing, and the staff members, they had a signal that they did, and a bunch of other folks came over with a big smile, picked him up off of the ground like this, and walked him into the school. While he was screaming, I was sobbing. And I guess, you know, a great mother that would get over that would go home, sob in her coffee, and go back and get him. I'm kind of a slow learner. I went into the parking lot, parked my car, and went in to see how he was doing, as I was sure that he was still sobbing, and this was the wrong choice. We didn't make the right choice. And lo and behold, I was able to look through one of those little two-way, or one-way rather, mirror window things, and saw he had his coat off, his hat off. There were no tears whatsoever. He was talking to children around him. He was smiling. He was laughing. He was the regular old Michael, happy as could be, and it was like nothing had even happened out front. You see, it was me that kept thinking, and, you know, in my mind, that he was having a horrible time. He was having a horrible time, and I'm so grateful to those teachers that said, Mrs. Smedley, you have to let him be able to do this the way the other kids do it. How's he ever going to learn? How's he ever going to have the confidence? And how's he ever going to be independent? That was my first lesson, our first triumph in gaining independence for Michael. So another thing that we did early on with our blind sons is they got to go and experience a sleepover at another child's house or a family member's house. And we didn't just say, hey, go have a sleepover without us so you can gain some independence. I kind of go at things a little more cautiously than that. What we did was, especially with Michael, some of the friends that we were really good friends with on our street back when he was in preschool and kindergarten, he had played over at some of the friends' houses, and we knew the parents really well, and all the kids got along, and Michael got to know the insides of the houses very well and was very confident there. So it was a perfect opportunity on several occasions for him to have a sleepover. And what that did for him was he was able to have a night away from Mom and Dad, in a very secure, controlled spot that he was perfectly willing and happy to be in. And it was so magnificent for, you know, he would go over maybe at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I think back then he probably got up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. He was always so happy to jump up and start his day. And I remember every time he did it, it wasn't that often at friends' houses, but every time he did it, he would come home just a little bit different in all great ways. He was a little more confident, a little more independent, a little more sure of himself, that he maybe didn't necessarily need me right by his side. And although I will admit the first time, probably the first 3 times, were kind of heart-wrenching for me, because I thought, what if he gets up in the middle of the night and he can't find his way? What if it's too much on our friends? What if he's trying to find the restroom in the house and he can't find it? What if he needs me in the middle of the night? And then, you know what? As I talked with other moms, and I have a sighted child too that's younger, I think all moms go through that. The first time a child has a sleepover. Yes, there's some differences with a blind child, but I realized that was an important stepping stone in Michael gaining confidence and independence that I didn't even realize would have such an impact at 16 that he can now go off to hotels and colleges and with friends away from us. So definitely try to find a good friend that you're comfortable with to have a sleepover at their house. Family, if you're blessed to have family nearby, that was also a wonderful thing that we were able to do, to have Michael go to his granny and pop-pops and his gram and grandpops and aunts and uncles and experience all different kinds of things away from us on his own, very controlled, very safe. So an additional piece of Michael gaining independence and confidence and being away from home and making choices and figuring things out on his own, oddly enough, was taking the school bus to school. Lots of folks, not even just parents of blind kids, but parents in general these days seem to be driving the kids to school. And I know that that works for a lot of families, but for us, I needed to make sure that Michael was able to go from point A to point B, figure out how to get to the school bus, which was like, I don't know, a little stone's throw away from our front door, but still he did it on his own. He'd get on the bus just like the other kids. He'd manage to get to the school, get off the bus, get to his classroom. Those little things, I know school buses aren't the greatest thing in the world to lots of people. Michael really enjoyed them when he was young. All the conversation that went on, people weren't running around that he couldn't find. So that was another piece of the puzzle. And him taking the school bus to school every day also helped him when he got to middle school and high school and sports programs, when he went to away meets and away football games and all that kind of stuff. He was able to navigate, figured out how to go from the bus with a buddy or whatever, a teammate, to the field, you know, and back. So just something as simple as riding the school bus gives our kids such great independence and confidence. So here's another big stepping stone that we put in place so that Michael would be able to be as independent and confident about that as he is now, and that's Camps for the Blind. Now, you might not think that that is such an important stepping stone for something like this, but I can tell you this, not only at the Camps for the Blind do our blind children get to meet other people like them, they learn to build their independence and their confidence in an environment where people are trained to watch over them, but not step in so much and let them grow and grow and grow. The hope is that you can start out at a Camp for the Blind and then move into all the, quote, regular camps and pursue anything that the kids want to do. But I highly recommend finding a Camp for the Blind. We started with a day camp for the blind. We're in the Philadelphia area, and we are so very blessed to have Camp Little Rock in South Jersey, and that's a day camp that Michael had the honor of being able to stay with the family that runs it, so he got to be able to, again, be on his own a little bit. But my second son, Mitchell, did use it as just a day camp, and he would go back and forth, and it's an entire day where they're navigating boating and stuff in the woods and trails and arts and crafts. They're doing all those things without me hovering over them, without me stepping in, and again with staff that's trained to work with blind kids to guide them and let them grow. And we eventually moved from, well, we continue with that one, but we added on just a couple of years ago a camp called Campabilities. And Campabilities is this phenomenal sports camp for the blind that I will do an entire video on and some blog post on, because it has changed our lives that much. But Campabilities here in Pennsylvania is a 3-day weekend over Memorial Day weekend, so my sons don't miss any school, and they actually stay at a college campus at Westchester University in the dorms, and they do sports from morning to night, but they also learn nutrition and healthy habits, and they have a one-on-one coach who again is trained to guide and not take over. And the beauty of that being a stepping stone for Michael being able to travel halfway across the country at 16 is Michael had to pack his bag to be able to go. He was sent a list of all the things he would need. He had to pack it in a way that he would know what the different things were. Okay, full disclosure, probably the first 2 times that he went, I packed and then got there, and instead of him being able to socialize and explore the dorm and get to know his coach, I had to spend all this time saying, Michael, I rolled up the gold shirt with the black shorts and they're in this drawer, and I rolled this stuff together, and I realized by the 3rd time he went that that was the goofiest thing in the world. He should be spending time getting used to that camp and getting to see all of his old friends. So Michael learned to pack his own stuff. All of our kids should be packing their own stuff, right? Sighted and blind. But he learned to pack his own bag so that he knew what was what, and he went through the list of what he needed, and then he could unpack it in a way that made sense to him. I don't know what makes sense to young boys and how they organize stuff, but it is what it is. So in a way that made sense for him, and he was fully responsible and knew where all of his stuff was, to be able to go through 3 days of, I mean, this was changing clothes and going from one sport to another and in and out of the pool, the shower, you know, towels, toiletries, everything, you know, soup to nuts. He had to do all of it, again, in a controlled 3-day, I'm 45 minutes away, you know, if you need anything, yes, they had some extra stuff there should he have forgotten something, but it was magnificent training for the big trip that he would take later. And then one of the final stepping stones or building blocks in terms of travel and independence and confidence and being prepared that we were blessed to have for Michael is, with all of those stepping stones that I've mentioned before this, he was given a magnificent opportunity to go on, again, just a 3-day weekend local to our home on Villanova's campus this time. And this time it wasn't with the blind community. This was with a regular everybody community of leaders, which is Michael's style or genre of people. He definitely likes to be amongst folks that are psyched about leadership and passion and service learning, that kind of thing. So he's had all these experiences with preschool and elementary school, and then camps for the blind, programs for the blind. Now was the test, right? 3-day weekend on Villanova's campus with the Hobie program, Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership. I may have messed that up. And he had the opportunity for 3 days, again, packed his bag, got to stay on the Villanova campus. I will say, since he's never been to Villanova, we did walk him through the front of campus to his dorm, showed him the dorm room and the main building where they were all going to do most of their activity. And then it was on him from that point to unpack, to, you know, get his blankets and towels and all that, and then find the activities, the folks he needed to find, and do his 3 days completely on his own. So that, and there actually was another blind person in the group of 200 16-year-olds, and Michael actually knew her. She's a friend of his, which worked out tremendously. So we had a big opportunity there to show folks how capable and wonderful blind kids are. But that was another piece of the puzzle leading up to the main event. So all of those building blocks, you know, those couple of tips leading up to the main event. The main event, that sounds crazy, but you know what I mean, the main event. Michael traveling at 16 years old by himself halfway across the country, 2 major cities, one to the other. And I'm happy to report he's having the best time. But you know, we didn't just then, okay, we did all this for him and he's going to be okay, he's able to pack his bag and da-da-da-da-da. He had to call the airline himself. I mean, he had to self-advocate and talk with them about what he would need, that I would be taking him to baggage check and he would need somebody to walk from the airline to walk with him to his gate, and then on the other side in Chicago, and then on the reverse trip as well. And we did some research and talked to some blind adults and a friend of his that's a couple years older that's blind, and we found that lots of times, way too many times, the airlines won't allow a blind person to walk. They want them in a wheelchair. We had those conversations with Michael. We prepared him for, you know, what's right and what he should be talking with folks about. And sure enough, he was prepared to have the conversation. And God bless American Airlines, because there was no battle, there was no problem. They asked him how he wanted to get from point A to point B. And he said, you know, sighted guide, and showed them what was comfortable for him, and it worked. And like I said, he's having a great time. He's exploring the city. He's doing some incredible service learning, and I know he's making lifelong friends. So he did all this confidently, independently, enthusiastically, and it didn't happen overnight. And I was not the person that started this way. I did not see this 16 years later as the end result. I thought it was going to be a lot different. So like I said, I'll post some resources for tools for those of you in the birth to 3, and then also for everybody else. These are just a few things. There is so much more to this picture. There are so many more tools and team members involved than I could do in one video. So I will have multiple videos on this talking about mobility lessons, what they look like to get my boys to where they are now, all the tools, not just a few things like Braille and technology, but all the tools that Michael utilizes. And will certainly, once he's back and settled and has a few minutes to breathe, we'll do a live Q&A with Michael, and we'll have some information that he found challenging and not so challenging, and a full report to share for other things that I may not have thought of to prepare him for. So it'll be interesting, and I encourage everyone to stay tuned to our Facebook community here at Thriving Blind to see all the stuff that my boys are up to, and some of the behind the scenes on how we do it. And please, please, please send me your questions, and more importantly, send me your things that worked for your children, or things that I've said that maybe didn't work for your child, and maybe we can figure out how to tweak it. Send them here through the Thriving Blind community. You can also find me on Twitter at Kristin Smedley, and you can go to my website, kristinsmedley.com, subscribe to my blog. You'll get all of these little in between the videos, the written out stuff that's a little more in-depth sometimes, or humorous, depending on which of my kids you're talking about, or that I'm talking about. But follow me there and get in touch, and let's exchange resources, and let's work together so that all of our kids will be thriving. Thanks.